Today we're doing a deep dive on the BLITZHOME Portable Smart Countertop Dishwasher. It's an appliance basically designed exactly for that situation.
Yeah, and our mission today is to figure out if this thing actually delivers on that promise. You know, the flexibility, the smart features, and maybe more importantly, what are the unavoidable trade-offs?
The thing that makes it really relevant for you, the listener, what sets it apart right off the bat, is that it can work totally independently. No fixed plumbing needed. It's properly portable because it has this built-in water tank, 5 liters.
That really is the key flexibility piece right there, isn't it? You don't need a hookup, just pour the water in. But of course, the research we looked at also confirmed if you do want something more permanent, you can still connect it. Standard faucet, hose. So it kind of works for both the person moving it around a lot and maybe the slightly more settled apartment dweller. Let's get concrete though. Before we dive into wash cycles and heat, we need to talk size. When they say countertop, what are we really talking about here? The specs listed as roughly 17 inches deep, about 16.9 wide, and 18.1 inches high.
And those numbers are really important because they tell you a lot about usability. Like 18.1 inches high, you immediately have to think about cabinet clearance, right? Lots of kitchen cabinets hang around 18 inches off the counter. This machine is designed to just squeeze under, maybe, but, in some older apartments, you might need to find a spot without cabinets above it or you'll block the top opening.
That's a really good point about clearance. And weight, too. It's about 26.5 pounds. Not super heavy, but it's not something you're just going to, casually stash under the sink after every wash cycle. It needs a spot, a dedicated patch of counter space.
Exactly. It needs its own home, even if it's, a temporary one on the counter.
All right, so moving past the physical box, let's get into the smarts. It's not just a mini washer. It's marketed as smart. What does that Wi-Fi connection and app control actually give you that just pushing buttons doesn't?
Well, the main thing seems to be convenience and remote monitoring. You can start cycles from your phone, set timers, check the status, all through an app. It's basically tech that's trickled down from those fancy full-size built-in machines.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate for a second here. Is remote start really that useful? I mean, if the standout feature is the 5-liter tank, which you have to fill manually, doesn't that kind of fundamentally undercut the whole point of starting it remotely? You have to be there anyway.
That brings up a really crucial point about the trade-off, yeah. The research suggests those remote features, they're way more useful if you've actually opted for the permanent hookup, the external faucet connection. Because if you're using the tank mode, well, yeah, we have to be there to load the dishes, and you have to be there to fill the tank before it can even start.
Gotcha. So the smart stuff becomes more about checking in, maybe scheduling, rather than true start it while I'm out for the tank use. Still handy for timers, maybe, but perhaps not the totally hands-off thing remote start might imply.
Precisely. It's more of an information tool first, activation second,
Nice.
unless you've got that faucet hookup going.
Okay. Beyond the app, let's look at the wash programs. There are 6. You've got the usual suspects: standard, quick, strong, eco, drying. But the one that always makes me kind of pause is the fruit cleaning mode. Why does a dishwasher need a fruit cycle?
Yeah, it kind of speaks to the crazy versatility manufacturers are trying to cram into small kitchen gear these days. We saw some notes suggesting it uses, lower pressure and shorter cycles, optimized just for rinsing produce, maybe getting surface pesticides off or waxes, that kind of thing. For someone in a tiny home or an RV trying to make every appliance pull double duty to save space, that could actually be pretty appealing. It's trying to be your veggie wash sprayer and your dishwasher.
Okay. I can see the logic. Aiming for maximum utility per square inch of counter space.
That's the idea. Okay, so let's get to the core job. Washing power. How do they actually manage to clean everything well in such a tiny space? In a big machine, you've got room to spread things out. Here, dishes must be packed in tight.
Right, and that's where the mechanics get interesting. This BLITZHOME uses a 360-degree dual spiral spray system, meaning it has spray arms on both the top and the bottom. That detail is pretty crucial because it directly addresses the problem of things blocking the water spray.
Yeah, when things are packed tight, so you've got 4 bowls nestled close water from just a single bottom arm, often can't reach everything inside those top bowls. So having the dual spray, it helps ensure water hits every surface, minimizing those missed spots. That's a super common complaint with really basic single spray compact models.
Smart engineering, then, compensating for the lack of space. And it's not just spraying, right? It's also about getting things sanitized and dry. The unit has high-temperature features. We saw the drying function gets up to around 167 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, 167 Fahrenheit. That's a pretty solid temperature, especially for sanitizing. And if you think about it in the context of compact living, That high-temp dry does two things. First, yeah, sanitation. Great. Second, it probably helps speed up the cycle a bit by using heat instead of just letting things air dry slowly.
Okay, and this next feature is where, for me, it gets really interesting,
Oh,
especially for our target audience, people in those small, maybe enclosed spaces like dorms or RVs, the air refresh function. Tell us about that one.
oh yeah, this is a potentially huge convenience feature. After the wash and the high-temp dry are done, the machine doesn't just stop. It kicks into this air circulation mode, ventilated storage, basically. And it can run for up to 73 hours? That's, wow, over 3 days?
73 hours of air circulation. Why is that so important in a small living space?
Well, think about it. Small spaces often trap moisture and get kind of stale, right? If you run a dishwasher in a studio apartment or an RV and you don't unload it right away, that leftover moisture can quickly turn into smells. And it creates a perfect little breeding ground for bacteria inside the machine itself. So this air refresh thing, it actively fights that, reduces the dampness, helps stop odors. It means when you finally open the door, maybe even a couple days later, you don't get hit with that blast of damp, stale air.
Okay, that actually sounds like a massive quality of life improvement. It directly tackles the reality of, not always unloading immediately in a small space. And speaking of reality, efficiency, we should touch on water use. It uses about 5 liters per cycle, you mentioned?
Yeah, 5 liters. That's around 1.3 gallons, which puts its efficiency in perspective. A standard full-size dishwasher that can use anywhere from 3 to 5 gallons, maybe even more, per cycle. So while you might have to run this little guy more often because it's smaller, on a per cycle basis, it's way more water efficient, which is great if you're watching energy use or maybe if you're in an RV with limited water tanks.
All right. So we've covered the really good stuff, the features, the niche it serves well. Now we got to pivot. Let's talk about the unavoidable trade-offs. Because let's be honest, anytime you pack this much tech into a small box, there are compromises. This is the reality check part of our deep dive.
Absolutely. And the biggest compromise, the one you just have to state up front, is capacity. The manufacturer might say 4 to 6 place settings, but we know from looking at user feedback, real world loads the stuff you actually use day to day. They're pretty limited.
Yeah, 4 to 6 sounds okay on paper, but that number is really optimized for like standard plates, maybe some cutlery. Try getting a big mixing bowl in there.
Wow.
Or a stock pot. Or forget about a pizza pan. You can't. You absolutely have to adjust your expectations compared to a full-size machine.
And that adjustment means planning ahead sometimes. You might end up running it twice after making dinner, whereas a big dishwasher would handle it all in one go. So it solves the hand washing issue for plates and cups, sure, but it doesn't eliminate it for those big, bulky cooking items.
The drying performance needs a closer look too, right? High-temp drying sounds good, but the user experience seems to be decent, but maybe not perfect.
Yeah.
Especially for things like plastics or tall mugs that tend to hold water.
Exactly. That heat often just can't evaporate water trapped in little pools or clinging to smooth plastic surfaces. So, yeah. You might still need to give some items a quick wipe with a towel. Or maybe leave the door cracked open for a bit to let them fully air dry. It's definitely better than no drying function, but it's not like commercial grade results every time.
Okay, and let's loop back to the smart trade-off again. We talked about the convenience of Wi-Fi. But there's a potential downside, right? That convenience is only as good as the tech behind it.
Right. This is where the complexity can actually shift the burden back onto you, the user. If the app is buggy, or maybe if your Wi-Fi is spotty, which again can be common in older buildings or remote RV spots, then that whole smart advantage just evaporates. And you're left with basically a manual machine, but one that's more complicated and potentially less reliable because of those extra components.
Yeah. More complexity means more things that could potentially fail too. The research suggests a device with a pump, 2 spray arms, heating elements, and an app module. Well, that just has more points where something could go wrong compared to a simpler, old-school machine.
And this raises another point about just the logistics of living with it. Even though it's compact, that 17 by 18-inch footprint still needs, like you said, decent, clear counter space. If you normally use that space for prepping food, the hassle of constantly shuffling the dishwasher around could get old fast.
It's a pretty significant chunk of counter real estate to sacrifice, especially in those truly tiny kitchens. That's a cost people might overlook when they just see the feature list.